#SingleDad saved his boss from a terrible date, not knowing she was in love with me. I never believed in fate until that rainy Tuesday night when I rescued my boss from the worst date of her life. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have possibly imagined, was that she had been secretly in love with me for months. If you've ever wondered if second chances at love really exist, especially for someone like me, a single dad just trying to keep it all together, stay with me until the end of this story. I promise it will be worth it. If this resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real stories that prove love finds us in the most unexpected ways. The first time I met Eliza Morgan, she was interviewing me for a position at Horizon Publishing. I was a mess, my tie was crooked, my resume had a coffee stain in the corner, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep after my 5-year-old daughter Lily had been up all night with a fever. I was certain I'd blown the interview before it even began. "Mr. James Carter?" Eliza had called from her office doorway, her voice crisp and professional. She wore a tailored navy suit, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, not a single strand out of place. Everything I wasn't that morning. "Yes, that's me. I'm so sorry about my appearance," I stammered, following her into her immaculate office. "My daughter was sick last night and—" "You're a single parent?" she asked, her expression softening slightly as she gestured for me to sit. I nodded, bracing myself for the usual judgment or pity. "Yes. It's been just Lily and me for 3 years now." Something flickered across Eliza's face, understanding, perhaps, before she returned to her professional demeanor. "Well, Mr. Carter, let's see if you're the right fit for our editorial team." Somehow, despite my disheveled state, I got the job. Eliza later told me it was my portfolio that won her over, but I always suspected it was something else, a connection, maybe. A recognition of someone else who understood what it meant to carry the weight of responsibility alone. For the next 8 months, Eliza was the perfect boss, demanding but fair, brilliant at her job, respected by everyone. She kept a professional distance from all her employees, but occasionally I'd catch her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. Sometimes our hands would brush when exchanging documents, and she'd pull away quickly, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. I dismissed these moments as my imagination. After all, she was Eliza Morgan, poised, successful, beautiful. And I was just a single dad trying to make ends meet, with perpetual dark circles under my eyes and a heart I'd locked away after my wife walked out on us. Then came the night that changed everything. I was working late, trying to finish edits on a manuscript that was already behind schedule. The office was empty except for the cleaning staff and me. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patel, my elderly neighbor who watched Lily after school. "Lily's fine, but she's asking when you'll be home. Don't rush, we're making cookies." I smiled, grateful for the 100th time for Mrs. Patel's kindness. I texted back that I'd be another hour at most, then returned to my work, determined to finish quickly. That's when I heard it, a soft sob coming from the direction of the restrooms. I hesitated, not wanting to intrude on someone's private moment, but the sound was so full of distress that I couldn't ignore it. I followed the sound to find Eliza sitting on the floor in the hallway outside the women's restroom, her back against the wall, her normally perfect hair falling around her face as she wiped furiously at her tears. "Eliza?" I said softly, shocked to see my composed boss in such a state. "Are you okay?" She looked up, mortified to be caught crying. "James. What are you?" I thought everyone had gone home. "I was finishing the Peterson manuscript," I explained, crouching down beside her. "What happened? Can I help?" She laughed bitterly. "Unless you can erase the last 2 hours of my life, probably not." "Bad date?" I guessed. "The worst," she confirmed, attempting to smooth her hair. I should have known better than to trust my mother's matchmaking skills. The man spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-wife, his stock portfolio, and how women in publishing just don't understand real literature. I winced. "Sounds charming. It gets better, she said, her voice steadying as anger replaced embarrassment. When I tried to end the date early, he suggested we should give it a chance back at his place because he could see past my career woman facade to the real woman underneath who just needs a man's guidance. My fists clenched involuntarily. Please tell me you threw your drink in his face. That earned a small smile. No, but I did tell him I'd rather spend the evening proofreading dictionary entries than spend another minute with him. That's my boss, I said, grinning. So why the tears? Her smile faded. It's not just him. It's everything. My mother's constant reminders that I'm 35 and single. The endless parade of terrible dates. Coming back to an empty apartment night after night. She looked away. Sometimes I wonder if there's something wrong with me. If I'm just unlovable. The vulnerability in her voice struck me like a physical blow. This was Eliza Morgan, the woman who commanded rooms with her presence, who never showed weakness, who seemed to have everything figured out. That's ridiculous, I said firmly. You're the most capable, intelligent, compassionate person I know. Any man would be lucky to have you in his life. She looked at me then, really looked at me, her eyes searching mine for something. You think so? I know so, I replied, suddenly aware of how close we were sitting. I cleared my throat and stood, offering her my hand. Come on. You shouldn't go home like this. Let me buy you a proper dinner to make up for your terrible date. She hesitated, then took my hand, allowing me to pull her to her feet. What about your daughter? Lily's with my neighbor making cookies. I have time. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a small Italian restaurant a few blocks from the office. It wasn't fancy, but the food was authentic and the atmosphere warm and inviting. As we shared a bottle of wine and plates of pasta, something shifted between us. The boss-employee dynamic melted away, replaced by something more natural, more real. Eliza laughed at my stories about Lily's latest kindergarten adventures. I listened intently as she shared her dreams of writing a novel someday. We discovered a shared love of old black and white films and a mutual hatred of cilantro. For the first time, I saw Eliza as more than my intimidating boss. I saw her as a woman with hopes and fears and a smile that made my heart beat faster. When my phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Patel saying Lily was getting sleepy, I reluctantly called for the check. I should get home to my daughter, I explained. Eliza nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. Thank you for this, James. You saved what started as a terrible evening. Anytime, I said, meaning it more than I expected to. As we stood outside the restaurant waiting for our respective Ubers, an awkward silence fell between us. The easy conversation of dinner was replaced by uncertainty about how to navigate our return to normal the next day. Well, I said finally, I guess I'll see you tomorrow, Ms. Morgan. She smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. Back to Ms. Morgan, are we? I thought, at work. James, she interrupted gently, I think after tonight, you can call me Eliza all the time. My Uber arrived before I could respond, and I left with a wave and a confused heart. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed and kissed her forehead, I couldn't stop thinking about Eliza, the vulnerability beneath her strength, the loneliness she tried so hard to hide, the way her eyes crinkled when she really smiled. The next morning at work was strange. Eliza was professional as always, but there was a new warmth in her eyes when she greeted me. Throughout the day, I caught myself looking for excuses to visit her office, to extend our conversations just a little longer. I told myself it was just concern for a friend after a rough night, nothing more. But then came the company's annual charity gala the following weekend. I'd arranged for Mrs. Patel to watch Lily, knowing these events were important for networking. I was standing by the bar, nursing a scotch and making small talk with colleagues, when Eliza entered the ballroom. She wore a deep green dress that flowed around her like water, her hair loose around her shoulders for once. She looked breathtaking, and from the appreciative glances around the room, I wasn't the only one who noticed. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and she smiled, a real smile, not her professional one, before making her way toward me. "You clean up nicely, Mr. Carter," she said, her eyes twinkling. "I could say the same about you, Ms. Morgan," I replied, suddenly very aware of how my heart was racing. We spent most of the evening together, circulating among donors and colleagues but somehow always finding our way back to each other. When the band started playing, Eliza looked longingly at the dance floor. "Would you like to dance?" I asked before I could overthink it. She hesitated. "Are you sure that's appropriate? I am your boss." "It's just a dance," I said, offering my hand. "And it's for charity." She laughed and took my hand, allowing me to lead her onto the dance floor. As we swayed to the music, her hand in mine, her other hand resting lightly on my shoulder, I realized with startling clarity that I was falling for Eliza Morgan. The thought terrified me. I hadn't opened my heart to anyone since my wife left, too afraid of being hurt again, too focused on giving Lily stability. And Eliza was my boss. There were complications, professional boundaries, potential consequences. But as she looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the soft lights above, none of that seemed to matter. The song ended, and we reluctantly separated. For the rest of the evening, there was a new tension between us, an awareness that something had shifted again. When it was time to leave, I offered to share an Uber since we lived in the same direction. The ride was quiet, both of us lost in thought. When we reached her apartment building, I walked her to the door, unsure of what to say or do. "Thank you for the dance," she said softly, keys in hand. "Thank you for not firing me for asking my boss to dance," I replied with a nervous smile. She laughed, then grew serious. "James, Whatever she was about to say was interrupted by my phone ringing loudly. It was Mrs. Patel's number. "I'm sorry, I have to take this," I said, heart immediately racing with parental worry. "Hello? Is everything okay?" "Mr. James, I'm so sorry to call so late," Mrs. Patel said, her voice strained. "Lily woke up with a very high fever. I think she needs to go to the hospital." "I'll be right there," I said, already turning to leave. "Tell her Daddy's coming." "What's wrong?" Eliza asked, concern evident in her voice. "It's Lily, she's sick, fever." "I need to go," I explained hurriedly. "I'm coming with you," Eliza said without hesitation, already locking her door again. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to. Now let's go." The next few hours were a blur of emergency room lights, doctors' questions, and my own fear as I watched my little girl, pale and small in the hospital bed. Lily had developed a severe case of strep throat that had gone undetected, and her fever had spiked dangerously high. Through it all, Eliza was a steady presence beside me. She brought me coffee, asked the doctors clarifying questions when my own mind was too foggy with worry to think clearly, and held my hand when the doctor explained they wanted to keep Lily overnight for observation. When Lily finally fell asleep, medication bringing her fever down, Eliza and I sat side by side in the uncomfortable hospital chairs beside her bed. "You should go home," I told her, aware that it was nearly 3 a.m. "You've done more than enough." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving you alone." "Why?" I asked, too exhausted for pretense. "Why are you doing all this?" Eliza was quiet for a long moment, watching Lily's chest rise and fall with each breath. "Because I care about you, James. Both of you." The simple honesty of her words broke something open inside me. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not just about Lily being sick. About this. Whatever is happening between us." She turned to face me, her eyes serious in the dim light of the hospital room. "What are you afraid of?" "Everything," I said with a hollow laugh. "Losing my job. Ruining our friendship. Getting hurt again. Lily getting hurt. I ran a hand through my hair. The last time I opened my heart to someone, she decided that being a wife and mother wasn't what she wanted after all. She left us both. Eliza reached out and took my hand, her touch gentle but firm. I'm not her, James. I know, I said, squeezing her hand. That's what scares me the most. Because with you, I think I could fall harder than I ever have before. The confession hung in the air between us, too honest, too raw to take back. Eliza's eyes widened slightly, and for a terrible moment, I thought I'd misread everything. Then she leaned forward and pressed her lips to mine, a kiss so soft and brief I might have imagined it if not for the lingering warmth. We'll figure it out, she whispered. One day at a time. Lily was released from the hospital the next day, her fever gone and her throat on the mend. Eliza came home with us, helping me set up a nest of blankets and pillows on the couch where Lily could rest and watch her favorite movies. As I watched Eliza gently tuck the blanket around my daughter, something settled in my chest, a certainty I hadn't felt in years. The weeks that followed were complicated. We decided to disclose our relationship to HR immediately, which led to Eliza recusing herself from directly supervising my work. There were raised eyebrows and office gossip, of course, but we weathered it together. More challenging was introducing Eliza into Lily's life as more than just Daddy's boss. We took it slowly, with Eliza joining us for weekend outings to the park or movie nights at home. Lily was cautious at first, but Eliza never pushed, never tried to replace the mother who had left. Instead, she built her own relationship with my daughter, bonding over their shared love of stories and Eliza's surprisingly good skills at building pillow forts. 6 months after that fateful night when I found Eliza crying in the hallway, we were having dinner at my apartment, Lily already asleep in her room, when Eliza grew unusually quiet. "What's on your mind?" I asked, reaching across the table to take her hand. She took a deep breath. "There's something I've never told you. About the night we first had dinner together." "What's that?" "It wasn't a coincidence that I was at the office so late that night," she said, not meeting my eyes. "And that terrible date? I knew it would be terrible. My mother had been trying to set me up with that man for months, and I'd been avoiding it." I frowned, confused. "I don't understand." "I finally agreed to the date because I knew you were working late that night," she admitted, a blush spreading across her cheeks. "I had this ridiculous plan to come back to the office afterward, pretend I needed something from my desk, and maybe, ask you out for a drink." "You what?" I was stunned. "I'd had feelings for you for months, James," she confessed. "Since that first interview when you came in with your crooked tie and talked about your daughter with such love in your eyes. But you were my employee, and a single dad, and I didn't know if you were ready to date anyone. So I kept my distance. Until that night," I said slowly, pieces falling into place. She nodded. "The date really was terrible, but I might have embellished how upset I was. I didn't expect to be sobbing in the hallway, but when you found me there, looking so concerned." She shrugged, embarrassed. I saw an opportunity. I stared at her for a long moment, then burst out laughing. "So you're telling me that the night I thought I rescued my boss from a terrible date was actually the night I finally found the courage to let you see me?"